Geiorge Helmer is a longtime AMC racer, restorer. He's got oodles of experience and stories to share with us. So take it away, George.
I've been basically involved in AMC probably since about 1965. My dad bought a 65.5 Marlin, but I was in the Army in 1964. I was a truck mechanic, went to Vietnam at 18 years old. Was in charge of the wrecker. I went out and recovered vehicles that were disabled. And then after Vietnam, I was transferred to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And at Fort Huachuca, I basically met a guy, his name was Jim Bridgewater. Eventually, Jim was a part of the crew that was for the Sassy Gremlin. So after I got out of the service, I went to work for Ken Burns Rambler in Covina. And it was where I first saw the new Javelins come out. And so I bought that green car, and basically what was a 343 with an automatic in it, but I ran out at Irwindale and Lyons and stuff like that in the stock class.
What is this down here? Are you trying to bring cold air into your engine? It's a sneaky little tube you got there.
Well, that's what I did. I brought cool air into the motor. I mean, it all worked well. In fact, even this is the street tires on it right now, but these particular tires were, it was 1968, and they were racing radios tires, and they wore out really quick because the rubber was really soft on it. I mean, that car did well, and I was influenced a lot by Trans Am. I had the car for about a year, and somebody rear-ended me and wiped out the back of my car. So what I did is I decided to turn it into a race car instead. It became the Travelin Javelin, and that was before the Travelin Javelin funny car. Again, it was a 343, but it was built. As you can see on the side of the car, it said JAVAMX. So I had joined the JAVAMX car club there in Orange County. And so we had a race team and everything out there. The guy that actually lettered the car right there was a friend of mine. He became one of the best automotive artists and letterers around, Kenny Youngblood. We went to high school together. I think we had about 35 to 50 cars in the club, all AMC cars. That's the JAVAMX sign. That is an original JAVAMX sign I have here. I had 17 members in our race team, was from 1969. And JAVAMX put out a quarterly newsletter, Riverside, where we got to take a lap before the Trans Am race. That's the new breed Gremlin. Okay, so the new breed Gremlin was a drag car, and it came out of Tucson, and it was run by Antonelli.
Bill Antonelli.
That car came out to our drag meets. It would come in from Tucson to run out in Orange County. And I became the president of the Orange County chapter in 70, I guess. We competed against the Fords, Chevys, Pontiacs, Chrysler, Mopars, whoever. And we did really well against those cars back in those days. We raced out at Carlsbad. There was a guy, his name was Reg Sheldrick. He started the club. We had clubs in New York, up in San Francisco, throughout different parts of the United States. And then we also had one in Puerto Rico. So that's the back of one of the newsletters. And, you know, they would cover everything. The AMX3. At one time, we were being supported a little bit by American Motors, get discounts and stuff for different things. And it was a good club. Project Javelin. It started off, there was a dealership up in Pasadena, Fox, up on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. This was in a magazine, and they did a big old article on this car. They raced it out at Irwindale, modified production class. Old Irwindale is where the brewing company is, off of the 210 freeway and the 605. That's where the original Irwindale was. I was in getting my car worked on. I was walking in the back lot, and I saw this Javelin sitting back there. I asked one of the mechanics, I said, what's happening with the Javelin? He says, oh, don't talk about that Javelin. The owner's really upset. I said, why is that? He said, well, the guy that was running the car for us stole the intake manifold and heads and all that stuff and ran off. Would he want to sell it? He said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd talk to him if I was you, but he's here if you want to talk to him. I got permission to go in to talk to him, and I went in and had a meeting with him, and he wasn't real happy. And I said, I'd like to buy the car just the way it is. He says, well, how much will you give me for the car? I says, $1,000. His face turned red, and he told me, get it out of here. You can have it. I didn't have any money in those days. So I asked him if I could buy it on payment. Yeah. And so that's what I did. When I got home and opened the trunk, the heads and the intake manifold and everything was inside the trunk. They didn't even bother looking inside the trunk to see if the motor was there.
So a dealer, an AMC dealer in the Los Angeles area, built this production Javelin into kind of a race car. And there was a big magazine article about it.
Yeah.
And the driver took the heads and intake off, put them in the trunk, pissed off the owner of the dealership, and you got it for $1,000 on time.
That's correct.
Wow.
And the thing is, I still have all the paperwork on the car. But in any case, when I got the car, I decided that I wanted to change the car. What I did is Randall in Mesa, Arizona, the AMC dealership, they did a lot of racing at the time. And I called over there and talked to Skip or Mike Randall, told him I was looking for a one-piece fiberglass front end. And I knew that they had made a funny car body. And he informed me, he says, I have part of a funny car body sitting outside that we're not going to use. If you come by, you can have it for your race car. So I drove that night. I left LA, went into Mesa, picked up the fiberglass front end, was sitting inside of actually a wooden crate. I brought it home, had to rework a lot of it. I used that as probably the first production car Javelin that ran a fiberglass front end on it. So what I did is I also knew a few people racing areas that helped me out, chassis builders and stuff. So I had a tube axle put underneath it. I went to Blair's Speed Shop in Pasadena, and on the shelf, he had a used Enderley fuel injection set up for a 390. So I bought that for $100. My friend Tex Cox, who had one of the super stock AMXs, he got a phone call from Penske people in the Trans Am racing, and they had a warehouse in El Monte, California. And they told Tex, if you want any parts, we're getting out of racing. This was like 72, I guess it was, whatever year, 72, 73. Tex called me and asked me, I only was one town over. We drove over to El Monte into this warehouse, and they told us we could have whatever we wanted. And I picked up a set of crane heads, Trans Am heads, a Trans Am oil pan, a scatter shield, a few other parts. And then Tex picked up a bunch of stuff. So my engine, I mean, I had to go back and take the heads and put new Manley valves in and stuff like that. I needed a new crankshaft, so I went to a place called Velasco. I ended up getting a crankshaft that he had on the shelf for AMC. It was a forged crankshaft that had been de-stroked for the Southern California Gas Company. They were going to do an experimental engine, and they decided not to do it. So he had two crankshafts sitting on the shelf. I got one of them, but they were made to run Chevrolet rods. They welded up the cranks so they can put Chevy 350 rods on that motor. So I was running the 350 Chevy rods on a D-stroke 390 motor and came to 380 inches, which put me into the C altered class when I was racing. And that car ran in the low 10s most of the time at 134, once in the 9s. That car was a screamer because it was so lightweight. It didn't have any window mechanisms in it. One bucket seat, pretty bare. That motor screamed, run lots of RPM. that's kind of the story on that car. And eventually sold the car and moved on. That I met this guy in the Army, Jim Bridgewater. I didn't see him much after the Army, but he was from my area. I went out to the races a few times. I'd run into Jim, and he was working on the Sassy Gremlin, the Paul Pittman car. So that was my introduction back to Paul Pittman and the Sassy Gremlin. I used to watch his car. Paul had a 48 Anglia. He rolled it, and so he had to buy another car. So he went to Ricker Motors over in Whittier and purchased a brand new Gremlin. And what they did is he had made an agreement with them, and they stripped the car. They took the motor, trans, rear end, mostly all the drive line out of the car, and they just gave him the body. And then he took the body to a builder, and what they did is they put a blown Chrysler in it. And this car went through 3 stages in existence. He first ran a 331 Chrysler Hemi, 55. That had the short bell housing, the normal bell, not the extended one. He wanted to run double B gas. His brother is K.S. Pittman, who ran double A gas. Paul designed a car to run in that class, and he ran it with a 2-port Hilborn injector on top of the blower. And then it went to a 4-port Hilborn injector. And then the last stage, he put dual turbos on the car. So he ran that 331 with dual turbos and turned in a quarter mile 162 in 8.8 seconds. This is as I got it. Paul had sold the car after he got out of it. A guy bought it with a Hemi in it, but only injected. The guy up there on the left-hand side is Jim Bridgewater. I saw the car in Hot Rod. The editor showed that he had picked up this car and he was going to help restore it at Hot Rod magazine. They didn't know what the car was, but I took one look at this car and knew it was Paul's car because of the fender, way they opened up the rear fenders. I took Jim, went over to look at the car to verify that it was Paul Pittman's car. Underneath that yellow paint was the seafoam green. And as you can see how it was really bad. It sat for 30 years or so in the backyard somewhere, and everything was messed up on that car. But I just could not help myself. Even if you look at the rear springs, they tried to raise the car by heating the springs, and you can see how screwed up everything was. But that was the original rear end under the car, not the original tires. Look how far out they were. I couldn't stand seeing the car disappear. The history in this car, it still holds the NHRA national record for double B gas turbo. I wanted to restore it, but I wanted to restore it back into the stage of the 4-port injectors on top. It does run the 331 55 Hemi in it. Exactly the same what Paul had. I even checked with Jim for what kind of compression the motor would have to have. He knew all that stuff. So I put all the car back exactly the way Paul had it at one period. Not the last period or the first period, but the middle period where it ran the Kragers and it was the prettiest. Painted exactly the same color it was before. That's the original jacket I had in 1969. That's basically the story of the car. Like I said, my first car was Travelin Javelin, but there was really a real Travelin Javelin. That car was by Gary Crane. Gary Crane raced out here. That car was built in 68. It was out on track in 69, I believe. It's a fiberglass trend body. Fiberglass Trends also ran their own Javelin. So they built a few Javelin bodies. It ran a competition engineering chassis, the same as Don Perdome, and those guys had the same basic chassis, although this was what they call kind of a wide body roll bar system. 69, 70, they went with a roll bar system that was in towards the center of the car. This was on towards the width of the car. And you can see the driver sitting in a regular driving position. I used to watch this one out at Orange County. It was the world's fastest javelin in the low sevens at around 200. At that time, there was probably 8 or so javelin funny cars, maybe more, but some of them turned into other cars. The Travelin Javelin basically ran from about 68 to about 72, I think it was. So there's two important things about this car. One is how fast it was. At that time, the fastest Javelin. And it also, on that front fender that you can't read, Dale Armstrong, he was the crew chief on this car. He was a top-notch crew chief. He also drove the car occasionally. In fact, some of the fastest times with this car was when he was actually behind the wheel. After Gary Crane had it, it changed hands several times. It went up to Canada and it became different cars up there. When it went back up to Canada, it started changing. It went from a AA fuel car down to a fuel car. Then it went down to a carbureted Chevrolet in the car. So it was running a Cano car of some type. It was repainted at least 3 times in different schemes. I had heard in the body that fiberglass trends always put their business cards in several places in the body so you could see them. And I went through and cleaned the inside of the body out and found those stickers and blocked them off so that I could prove it was a fiberglass trends body. There was no grill in the car when I got it. I had to cut out the old grill, put in a new grill. It took a lot of time to restore the body. I'm working on getting a Hemi 426 because that ran a 426 in it. I had a chassis builder build a replica of the original chassis and put it all back exactly where it needed to be. We didn't even test the body until the chassis was done. I was able to set the body down under the chassis and all the mounts matched up exactly to where they were supposed to go. A 9.3 Olds rear end under it, had it narrowed. I put all the stars, all those graphics on the car too. Around 99 or 100 stars on the car. I had a guy come in and actually do the pinstriping of the stars. 8 different colors laid down on the car.
That's incredible, George, that you were able to find these cars that you admired in your youth, that you were able to chase them and hunt them down and acquire them. And now you're in the process of painstakingly and accurately restoring them. It's just fantastic what you've done.
I'm on a mission. Tex Cox, who had the super stock AMX, it was called Wicked and Wild when he raced it. And he also races Gremlin. His wife races Gremlin a lot. And so I was able to take it down a strip a few times. That's my 70 AMX. I restored this car. This is the actor Steve Reeves that played Hercules. Steve was a friend of mine. And when he passed away, I inherited the car. He was a Mr. America, Mr. Universe. Steve introduced me to a lot of people. I was friends with Jack LaLanne. Lou Ferrigno's a friend of mine. I write books on fitness and bodybuilding. I've done a lot of things, but cars, my passion. I love cars. And I have a passion for AMC.
This program is brought to you by Gibbs.
It's not greasy or oily.
Come on, kids.
Good stuff.